This is my Christmas gnome decoration. I think it's loads of fun and is really easy to make as well, because basically it's a ball with a hat, hair and a nose. I've used jersey fabric and a polar fleece for his hat, so it's nice and squishy and soft as well. And for his hair I've used a piping cord, which I've unravelled to make it a little bit fluffy. So again, it's not going to take you very long to make him. I can imagine a whole row of these, maybe in different colours, some with their hats up and some with their hats down. That's up to you, and of course you can embellish them with trims and decorations as you like. So here's how I made him. So first of all, we'll take our strip of fabric, which is the body, and I'm going to fold that in half and sew together along the short side. And I'm just using the edge of my foot as a seam allowance, so it's around about 1/4 inch, but it's not terribly important that it has to be exact. I think particularly when you're working with stretch fabric like this, because it's very forgiving. There's a little bit of a pile on it, so it means that wobbly stitches are disguised rather well. So we'll sew in the base. Now the base is a little bit smaller than the outside, so I'm going to gather this to make it fit. So I'm going to do this by hand, because to be honest, I find it quicker than doing it on the sewing machine. If you wanted to gather on your sewing machine, then elongate your stitch to around about number 5, and then just pull one of the threads to gather it. And then we'll pin in the base. So let's actually do this inside out. So pop a pin in the top and in the bottom. And then we can tighten or loosen the stitches as we need to with the gathers to make the base fit. Again, it's not very gathered, but it's enough to give the gnome a little bit of a belly shape. That's it. And then when I've arranged those gathers, I can just knot off my tacking thread. Don't worry if you can see this when you sew the whole piece together, because it's only a tacking thread, so you can unpick that afterwards. And then let's sew. And then we'll turn the right side out. Then we'll take some toy filler and push it inside. So we want him to be nice and plump. Do be aware, again, if you're using stretch fabric like I am, he will stretch quite a lot. If you're using just a woven fabric, then he'll keep his size a little bit better, but I kind of like him being nice and plump. So don't stuff him all the way to the top, but do make sure when you put your stuffing in there that you press it right down and make it as firm as you can. Now, if you're going to put a weight in the bottom, obviously do that first. So if you want to make him into a little doorstop or a paperweight, then I'd maybe use something like a pebble or a bag of sand or a bag of rice, but put that right in the base first of all before you put the padding in. Right, and it takes an awful lot more than you imagine, actually. That'll do. Okay. Then again, I'm going to take my needle and thread. Oops. Just need to take some more thread and make another running stitch around the top. I'm using double thread, by the way, just to make it that little bit stronger. I find that easier when I'm gathering, it's less likely to break. Right, so a nice big knot on the end of this so it doesn't pull through. And then we'll take the running stitch again all the way around the top. And pull that tight and tie it in a knot. This is going to be underneath his hat, so you're not going to see any of the stitches or anything. Make that nice and firm. And I think while I'm here with the gathering, so that's his body, I'll gather his nose as well. Whoops. Seems somebody's walking past the house. So excuse my guard dog. So just before I gather that up, I'm just going to take a small pinch of toy filler and push that inside. We'll put the nose on later. I just thought while I'm here gathering, I may as well gather all of it. Then pull that tight. And, whoops, come here. And I'm just going to knot off the thread, and I'm sewing the sides together as well, just to pull it a little bit tighter around the back. Don't see the gathers at the back of the nose when this is sewn on. That'll do, and then we'll tie that into a knot and put that to one side for a second. So next up we're going to make the hair, and again I'm just using piping cord. You could use yarn or even a little bit of felt cut into strips would work. So let's have a measure. The hat is probably going to go around about 2 inches down from here. So I'm going to loop my pieces over like this and apply them about 1 inch from the top. I can always trim these down later if I feel that they're too long. We can always give our gnome a bit of a haircut. So I'm going to cut lots of pieces. And I'll measure these actually as well, so you know how long they are. Mine are 9 inches long. And I'm just going to cut a few and start to, in fact I'm going to stick them on. This gnome isn't going to go into the wash, so I've got no qualms about using glue. If you've got a hot glue gun, that may be useful, but I'm just going to use a strong wet fabric glue. So let's cut a few of these and start putting them around. This is going to fray at the bottom as well, and that's deliberate. I want it to. I want the ends of this to be fluffy. But again, if you're using yarn, then you may not need to do that. That's entirely up to you. So I'm going to just drizzle a little bit of glue about 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters from the top. Fold these in half and stick them on. So nice and tightly together. And nestled up against each other so they're not overlapping, so it's not too lumpy under there. And again, I know they're not all quite the right length down there, but I'll trim those down afterwards. Okay, so while that one's drying, I'll cut some more for the rest of the head. If you feel you need to fill in a few gaps, then of course you can go back around and maybe just cut a few single threads and pop those in the gaps. So I think we'll have another one just going down the back there. Maybe one in here. Remember, we're going to cut these all down so that they're the right size after everything's dried. Maybe one in here. Then we'll leave that to dry. Again, if you're using a hot glue gun, then that'll be dry by now, so you can just carry on. If you're using wet glue, you may need to leave that a little bit. That's entirely up to you, actually. It's not difficult to do with hot glue. Hot glue tends to dry very quickly, so if you do want a little bit of a wiggle time, if you think you might want to manoeuvre things around, then wet glue is probably going to be the way to go. Right, then we'll finish this one. We'll come back and do the hat. So I've been around and kind of frayed all the edges. So my Gnome looks like he's got a curly mop now. So just kind of undone all the twists of the ends of the piping. So he's got quite a thick head of hair. Let's put together the hat. So I've cut out my 2 triangles. Again, all of your measurements are going to be in the description box below. And I'm just going to sew the long sides together. And again, I'm using fleece for this, so it's a very forgiving fabric. But it makes everything nice and soft. And Cuddly's a cuddly gnome. Now with a stretch fabric like this, normally you would use a stretch stitch. I haven't done on this one because, to be honest, it's not going to stretch an awful lot. So don't worry about that. You could use a ballpoint needle. But again, I'm not too fussed. I've only got a universal needle in here. It's not like you're sewing a garment whereby it's going to be going over your head and it's going to stretch and put strain on the stitches or anything like that. So don't worry too much about that. Okay, we're going to chop the point off to cut down on the bulk of the fabric when we turn this the right side out. And let's turn it through. And I'm just going to use my turning tool to push out the point. And I'm going to snip across the seams because they're poking out of the bottom because of the shape of the hat. Now again, because this is fleece, it doesn't need to be hemmed. If you were making this from a woven fabric like a cotton, you'll need to turn the end over and hem it a little bit. Let's pop it on, see if it fits. Now it's up to you. I'm going to lift it up at the front a little bit and go down at the back. It's up to you whether you want to maybe add a little bit of padding in the top, so he's got a long tall hat. If you wanted that to flop over a little bit, I'm going to put a pom-pom on the side of mine. And again, if you wanted to glue or to hand stitch that in place, it will need to be fixed. Even if it's only a few stitches just at the side, you'll need to fix that down. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue around here. Again, wet glue, hot glue, that's entirely up to you. But let's even out his hair. I'm going to make a little parting where the nose is going to be sewn on, right at the front here, so I know where that's going to go. And again, down at the side. So let's put a little bit of glue down here first of all. And I'm going to hold that in place with a pin. So pin but not through the glue, and then just kind of by eye glue the opposite side in the same position. I'm going to try and glue to the actual body, not to the hair, so it doesn't move. And again, if you wanted to hand sew that, that would be absolutely fine. Let's pop a pin there. And I think another just on the back of the head will be plenty to hold the hat in place. So while the glue is drying there, I'm going to take the nose, part the hair over where the nose is going to go, and I'm going to sew that in place just below the hat. I've also added a little pom-pom to the top of his hat, so let's fold that over. There's some of these cords that are slightly longer than the others, so I'm just going to give them a bit of a trim to make those nice and even. I can take all of my pins out now because the glue's dried. And there's my finished gnome. So what are you going to call yours? I'm imagining maybe a row of 3 or 4 of these on a mantel shelf as Christmas decorations, and you could have them with the hat in different directions, or some of them standing up on end. You could add little dangly legs if these are going to sit on something like a mantel shelf. Add little skinny legs hanging over the edge. That would be good fun as well. But I think it's fun. It's a very simple make, and I think it's going to be one of those Christmas decorations that just doesn't go away after Christmas. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I hope you enjoy making yours. I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.